Thank you. Senator Lankford.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you, expertise that you're bringing. Can I ask just a broad question? What other nations are dealing with the fentanyl use like we are? It's such an incredibly inexpensive drug to be able to produce. Obviously, it's killing 100,000 Americans now. We're seeing what other nations are dealing with the drug addiction issues that we're dealing with right now for fentanyl specifically.
Well, currently Mexico, even though Mexican President López Obrador continues to deny that fentanyl is used in Mexico, and Canada, which has some of the same death rates as the United States. Fentanyl is also used in parts of Europe, Estonia, where it's been long established market, and various fentanyl amounts have popped up around other parts of Europe, like Nordic countries. The bigger issue in Europe currently is other type of synthetic opioids, so-called nitazines. Fentanyl has been seized in various other parts of the world, but part of the challenge of answering your question, Senator Lankford, is that very many countries do not, in fact, monitor either the flows or the use of fentanyl. So there might be much more than is known.
Right. So for the countries that have been successful in trying to be able to deter fentanyl use in their country, what have they found to be successful?
So I think there are, the sole case of success are the Nordic countries about a decade and a half ago, where fentanyl was showing up in Norway, in Finland, around 2005, 2006, 2007. This was before fentanyl became a mainstream drug and because the ease of production was significantly simplified. At the time, the Nordic countries were able to very rapidly dismantle fentanyl supplying networks.
How?
They did investigations and arrested the entire network that was bringing it in. But those networks were small, marginal. They were not networks with the power, the extent of Mexican cartels that are robustly establishing operations around Europe these days, or the diversification and scale of Chinese criminal networks. It was very different days than they are right now.
Obviously, the technologies, thank you, by the way, the technologies increased for detection of fentanyl, but we're still not there to have a visual spectral analysis to be able to pick it up, to be able to evaluate that. As far as the movement of technology, Senator Hassan and I have continued to be able to work on outbound inspection to try to pick up guns and drugs heading south, or guns and cash, I guess, heading south, and then also the inbound. It's my understanding we've got about $300 million worth of non-intrusive inspection equipment sitting in a warehouse, waiting for Congress to be able to finish out the allocation of the dollars, actually install it. I'm sure that will make a difference for us. But as far as inspection equipment and locations for that, or new types of technology for detecting it, what are we seeing at this point? Both handheld that could be used by local law enforcement or at a border. Are we seeing anything?
So there's been a dramatic improvement in terms of detection, in terms of handheld, and at the border. It just needs to be deployed but deployed on both sides of the border to detect the fentanyl coming in, right? So there's another component of Mexico where we need to build up capacity there. But within the United States, there has been an improvement in terms of technology. It just needs to be purchased, trained, and delivered to the field. Every field officer or investigator that has to deal with this issue on a narcotics unit should have a handheld detector so they know what they're dealing with. But in terms of Mexico itself, if I could digress, I mean, there needs to be a dramatic improvement in terms of resources down there, and you could push those resources out there as well to impact the fentanyl trade.
Resources are one thing, the personnel to actually run it and that are trusted partners to be able to do that in those areas, that's something very different.
It's something very different, and from my perspective, and Senator Romney brought this up, in terms of organized crime, it needs to be the goal of the United States to take down the Mexican cartels. And the reason I say that is the only way we're going to actually win this battle against fentanyl is to go after the Mexican cartels. There is an opportunity with new leadership coming in Mexico. We need to go back to Plan Colombia and what has demonstrated success. It's not going to be easy, but the things that I would suggest are, one, vetted units. We need to build up the capacity of Mexico and our joint operations within the United States to go after the cartels. So there should be a collaborative relationship. an ally of ours. We share a border with them. We have tremendous trade with them, so we should commit to this relationship. And there are new things we do, not just with vetted units in Mexico, but things called joint investigative teams, where we work collaboratively in the United States with officials from other countries. They do this in Europe a lot, and again, we should fully commit to that. The second part is extraditions. We can do this tomorrow, and this would have a dramatic impact on Mexican cartel members. We have a treaty with Mexico. They should honor our extradition requests, and that would have a dramatic impact. I could go on and on to different ideas, but building up that capacity and committing to it would make a big difference.
There's been some push for additional authority to be able to sanction individuals in these cartels. You're also talking about extradition. We need the additional authorities to be able to pass for the sanctions authorities, but what authorities already exist that are not currently being used?
So the last sanction order, the executive order that the Biden administration came out with, it's a low threshold to sanction individuals and companies that are facilitators of the fentanyl trade. Right. That's what I talked about earlier in terms of standing up a a sanctions platform to go after whether it's Chinese chemical companies or any facilitator in Mexico. And if we can't impact them with arrest and extradition, just frankly sanction them. It's a good use of time and money.
Criminal consequences here for those that are trafficking in fentanyl. Is there a need to be able to increase consequences, obviously on the federal level for trafficking across the border, or to be able to hold people greater to account if there is a death from fentanyl, to be able to trace that back to everyone in the chain of distribution?
So absolutely. Everyone should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, from the death back to the source of supply. We should be using the racketeering laws that we have, that when we went after Italian organized crime, we should be going after Chinese organized crime that's operating in this country.
Is that happening right now?
No.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the concerns that I have, is that it should have. Those are authorities that currently exist right now, that if you've got the death of a 25-year-old based on a fentanyl use of something they thought was an Oxycontin, was actually had fentanyl laced in it, death of that individual, being able to track back all the distribution to the beginning.
So there have been prosecutions on exactly what you're saying. There needs to be more, because every death that's a result of drugs trafficked from the Mexican cartel should result in one of those prosecutions.
Okay, thank you.